Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Double F podcast. Thank you very much for joining us for episode 2. If you haven't checked out episode 1, go do so. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can do that. Also, it's on my website, fahadfarouk.com, and various other podcast streaming sites. Okay, episode 2. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about uncertainty. How it used to be cool as a kid, but as an adult, it gets really scary. Here we go. All right, so uncertainty can be scary in the sense of what's going to happen to me. Will I be okay? Will I be safe? Will I make enough money? Will I be able to pay the bills? Will I know what I want with my life, etc., etc.? It just keeps going on, right? Now, when you were a kid, uncertainty was interesting. Like, where are we going? What are we going to do? Who's at the door? What am I going to play with today? All of these things, right? Because you were in that stage of discovery and you didn't have a sort of weight of responsibility on you, right? So as you get older, of course, uncertainty becomes more and more complex because the stakes are higher, the risk is higher, and the responsibility might be with you. Um, the word responsibility might be the most important thing here because we can't defer that responsibility anymore, and we need to take a sense of ownership for the decisions that we need to make. Um, so there are two components here with uncertainty, right? And it has to do with how our brain works. Now, imagine in the olden days when men were cavemen or whatever, right? And uncertainty was a system that our older brain that grew to deal with uncertain situations. Like, for instance, this dude's walking in the jungle, he sees a lion or some creature, he's unfamiliar areas, unfamiliar animals, and his brain goes into a very sort of fight or flight mode of self-preservation. But when he came back to his safe area up in the trees or in the little camp or whatever, they knew they were safe, right? So uncertainty had its place, or the reaction of the brain had its place during that time. But in this day and age, uncertainty is a regular occurrence, right? It happens in the world of business, it happens in your personal life, and this sort of over-the-top reaction doesn't have a place because uncertainty is part of our normal routine. We need to learn to not have a reaction to uncertainty in a way that it's not going to be beneficial to us, because this is business as usual. Uncertainty is business as usual, and we need to learn to deal with it. We need to learn to tune our brain to get in line with responding better to situations that require uncertainty, right? And we deserve this, right? Because we all deserve emotional freedom. We deserve to have more control over our lives. We deserve to have peace of mind, and that comes better with a better response to uncertainty, in a sense. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to talk about in terms of dealing with this crippling uncertainty. And number one is understanding what we desire. More often than not, it's some kind of stability in terms of income, in terms of acquaintances and friends, in terms of our future in general. So we crave this stability. And when there's a mix of things that we're uncertain about, we feel that sense of stability slipping away. And at different stages in our lives, maybe different parts of this, whether it's income, acquaintances, or our future, it tends to peak and ebb and lower in terms of varying degrees of importance. So, number one, in any situation that you're uncertain, the biggest question to ask is, what is it that I desire from this situation? What is it that I'm craving? A lot of the times it's probably from some unmet psychological need that we have, that we feel uncertain. Like, for example, sometimes there is no reason you can put your finger on, but you're just generally feeling anxious and uncertain. Sometimes you need to make a decision, so you're anxious and uncertain. Sometimes you need to have a conversation with a loved one, because of that you're anxious and uncertain. Now, in each of those situations, or any of those situations, you need to ask, what is it that I desire as an outcome from this pending interaction? And that will help you anchor your thoughts around the decisions you need to make in order to sort of alleviate that sense of uncertainty that you have. Okay. Um, Number two, there's this really cool Chinese proverb that says, if you want to know about your past, look into your present conditions. If you want to know about your future, look into your present actions. That means the decisions you made in the past dictate how you're currently living. And if you want to see what your future is going to be like, you should look at the actions you're currently making. And this is terribly important in the sense that if we're afraid of an uncertain future, the question is, what are we doing right now in order to ensure more stability, in order to ensure more sort of predictability, in order to ensure more sort of control over the facts that we might believe are largely variable. Within that, it's important to understand that uncertainty presents a sense of opportunity, because if there's uncertainty, that means it could go one of multiple ways. And within this scope, if you can figure out what's the most beneficial way for you in terms of outcome, in terms of return, maybe financially, maybe emotionally, then therein lies an opportunity for what you can sort of extract from this present uncertainty. An important thing within this scale is to have a plan B and a plan C. Now, I don't say that in the sense of that jaded way of, what's your plan B, but in a sense of, remember the first one, right? What is it you desire? If you can identify what you desire, you need to get to this place, right? And you have a path to get there. You need to ensure that if that path does not work out, what are the other paths available for you to get to that destination? And that is terribly important, because all of these factors, these backups, these fail safes, these sort of hedging activities, it helps you reduce that sense of uncertainty in line with where you want to get, right? There's this thing that was said by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who declared, if you're distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Now, it's a response. It's how you respond to a situation. So if someone does something to you and that thing causes pain, it's because your response is pain. If you're a freakazoid who likes pain, then your response to that pain is pleasure through that pain. What I'm trying to say is that we choose the response that we can make to various situations that we perceive as being uncertain. And maybe a response we need to sort of harvest is being comfortable with uncertainty, because like we said earlier, it's an unavoidable part of life. Within this scope of things, we need to start focusing on the things that we actually can control, because the things that you can control, if you increase the scope of it and you exert as much control as possible over those things, it might limit the impact of the things that you cannot control. And overall, this might create a more balanced field in terms of things that you have to do, right? So, in terms of dealing with uncertainty, sometimes we have those waves, right? Suddenly you wake up in the morning inexplicably, you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen with my life? What's going to happen with my job? What am I going to do? And you find yourself, sort of simmering in this uncertainty. And it's not productive. Sometimes it passes, sometimes it just engulfs your entire day. But one of the things that helps me in situations like that, and a lot of clients that I work with, is to help them anchor and identify what is it that you desire, what is it that you want. Let's take an example of your job, how much money do you think you're going to need in order to have enough of a backup if you think things are going bad? And that gives you a target to work towards. It gives you something that you can say, if I have this much, then I would feel secure. Then you'd go to step 2, what are the ways I can secure this money? Sometimes my standard job is not enough. Can I do certain side gigs, or do I need to start looking elsewhere? I'm not saying it is easy, because it most definitely is not easy, but there are various tools we can use in order to dissipate or reduce the impact of this uncertainty and sort of start pushing ourselves more towards living a certain-ish life. As takeaways from this episode, one of the few things that I want you to focus on in the end is that uncertainty, as you know, is a part of life. It is not something that's going to come along as a surprise. Expect the surprise. Expect it to come along. Expect it to come and affect you in different ways. But what we need to cultivate is our response to uncertainty, and that comes with more control over our emotional response. And that control comes with focusing on certain factors that gives us stability. Some of those factors are, what do I want? From this entire area of things, what can I control? From these things that I can control, what can I start doing now? All of these things are going to start helping us to respond better to situations that make us feel uncertain. And maybe we can start to enjoy uncertainty again. Like we did when we were a kid. Like, who's at the door? What am I going to do? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Alright, so that was a very quick episode 2 of the Double F podcast. I will see you in episode 3. If you'd like listening to the podcast and you're not already listening and you're watching this, check out my website fahadfarooq.com, and where you can just listen to episodes on the go, also on various other podcast streaming sites. If you're more of a visual person, check us out on YouTube. And I will see you in episode 3.